All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to explore the incredibly vibrant, living mosaic of religious beliefs in India between the 8th and 18th centuries. It's a fascinating era that literally redefined the cultural and spiritual landscape of the subcontinent, and the texts left behind give us a really amazing window into how these societies evolved. So let's dive right in by asking a foundational question. How did India's vibrant mosaic of beliefs actually take shape? We're looking at a period where an absolute explosion of devotion transformed the cultural map. And it wasn't just about massive temples and powerful kings. It was this profound, often messy blend of orthodox texts colliding with grassroots rebellion, where entirely new voices were emerging from every single corner of society. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the Saguna and Nirguna traditions, move down south to look at the Alvars, Nayanars, and the Cholas, then head over to Karnataka for the Virashaiva movement before exploring North India's religious ferment, and finally the arrival of Turks, Sufis, and Islam. Okay, Section 1, Saguna and Nirguna traditions. To really unlock this journey, we have to understand two broad categories that historians use to classify early Bhakti traditions. On one side, we've got Saguna Bhakti, which literally translates to with attributes. This is all about worshiping specific, often anthropomorphic deities, gods with human-like forms, distinct personalities, and rich stories. On the flip side is Nirguna Bhakti, meaning without attributes. This is the worship of a completely abstract, formless god. It's a massive philosophical divergence in how people actually connect with the divine. And to give you a clear picture of the Saguna tradition, just look at Lord Jagannatha of Puri, a specific, very localized form of Vishnu that became deeply integrated into the culture by the 12th century. Or take a look at the magnificent 12th century bronze sculpture of Shiva. Both of these show how major deities were worshipped in distinct, vibrant physical forms. It makes the divine approachable, right? It's something you can see, something you can dress, and even offer food to. Moving on to Section 2, the South, Alvars, Nayanars, and Cholas. So let's travel down to 6th century Tamil Nadu. What is absolutely incredible about these groups is how truly revolutionary they were for their time. The Alvars, who were entirely devoted to Vishnu, and the Nayanars, devoted to Shiva, didn't just sit quietly in temples. They actually traveled around singing hymns in the local Tamil language. But here is the real kicker. Look at their social makeup. They included artisans, cultivators, and even those considered untouchable by the orthodox Brahmanical system. They totally challenged patriarchal norms by featuring prominent women saints like Andal and Karaikal Ammayar, who literally abandoned their social obligations for extreme devotion. And crucially, they fiercely competed with Buddhism and Jainism for royal patronage. And guess what? They won that patronage in a spectacular fashion. The Chola rulers heavily backed these Bhakti traditions. Because think about it, to claim divine support and legitimize their own political power, these kings funded the construction of massive, awe-inspiring stone temples, just like the spectacular Brihadiswara temple in Thanjavur. The state and the religion became deeply, deeply intertwined. But this integration went way beyond just architecture. The Chola kings actively institutionalized the Bhakti movement. They officially introduced the singing of Tamil Shaiva hymns right into temple rituals, and even took the initiative to collect and organize these hymns into a major text known as the Tevaram. Kings like Parantaka I went as far as commissioning grand bronze images of the saints themselves to be carried in royal processions. Essentially, the state was co-opting this popular grassroots devotion to completely solidify its own cultural and political dominance. Let's head to Section 3, Karnataka and the Virashaiva movement. Now, in 12th century Karnataka, we meet a fascinating group called the Virashaivas, or Lingayats, led by a minister named Basavana. The Lingayats were marginalized by the Brahmanical order, and in response, they completely rejected orthodox rules derived from the Dharmasastras. Their practices were radically distinct. They wear a small linga to worship Shiva, they actually bury their dead instead of cremating them, and they boldly challenged the caste system and the theory of rebirth. They even encouraged highly progressive social practices for the time, like post-puberty marriage and widow remarriage. They basically built a highly unique and enduring community structure that is still very much alive today. Actually, I absolutely love this Vachanam by Basavana. He writes, "When they see a serpent carved in stone, they pour milk on it. If a real serpent comes, they say, 'Kill, kill.' To the servant of the god, who could eat if served, they say, 'Go away, go away.' But to the image of the god, which cannot eat, they offer dishes of food." I mean, he hits the nail on the head. He's pointing out the complete absurdity of pouring milk on a stone serpent, but yelling kill, kill at a real one. It's just a remarkably witty, sharp critique of empty religious rituals over practical human compassion. The Virashaiva tradition relied heavily on these vachanas, or sayings, which were composed in Kannada by both men and women. This made their philosophy accessible, highly relatable, and deeply logical to everyday people. Section 4, North India's religious ferment. Now, this timeline maps out a very different scenario from what we saw in the South. Up in North India, you had several Orthodox Rajput states where Brahmanas held a very tight monopoly on rituals and power. But simmering just underneath the surface were unorthodox groups, artisans, weavers, and religious leaders like the Naths, Jogis, and Siddhas. These groups openly questioned Vedic authority, but they just couldn't win the support of the ruling elite. All of this underlying tension basically set the stage for the 13th century, when Turkish conquests ultimately culminated in the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate. Impartially speaking, this massive shift in state power fundamentally broke the orthodox monopoly. When the Rajput rulers lost their political dominance, the Brahmanas associated with their courts naturally lost their exclusive grip on religious authority. This huge structural collapse created the absolute perfect environment for new ideas, specifically Sufi traditions, to take root, flourish, and really appeal to the masses who had previously been sidelined by the old system. Which brings us to Section 5, Turks, Sufis, and Islam. As Islam permeated far and wide across the subcontinent, those who adopted the faith accepted its foundational pillars, like the Shahada, daily prayers, giving alms, and fasting. But, and this is crucial, it wasn't some rigid, monolithic process. The really fascinating takeaway here is how these universal features frequently blended with local customary practices. It created a uniquely South Asian expression of the religion that varied significantly from region to region. And the state played a highly nuanced role here as well. Rulers actually extended a protected status known as zimmi to Hindus, Jainas, Christians, and others who paid a tax called jizya. But beyond just basic protection, many Muslim rulers adopted surprisingly flexible policies. They frequently granted tax exemptions and land endowments to non-Muslim religious institutions. It really showed a pragmatic respect and devotion that allowed multiple faiths to coexist and cross-pollinate, adding a profound, beautiful new layer to the subcontinent's religious tapestry. So, we've seen how state power, grassroots rebellions, and the blending of radically different philosophies shaped centuries of history. It all leads to one final thought. If our history is built on such a diverse, deeply integrated mosaic of beliefs, how does that shape our understanding of culture today? We'll leave you with that thought to ponder. Thank you so much for joining this explainer on the incredible foundations of the Bhakti and Sufi traditions.